What's up, everyone? It's Matt Mrozik, and I figured I'd do a video series on this next project of mine. Haven't done any videos in a while because I've been past month and a half or so I've been working on prototypes, so I haven't been showing any of that. But this is the next project on the bench, and this is a 1/4 scale custom kit of Thor, God of Thunder, sculpted by Franco Carlesimo. And I believe I did a review video this a while ago, but I'm going to do a quick intro on this since we're going to do a work in progress on this. I try to do work in progress on pieces that people find interesting and things that I really like and I really am looking forward to paint. So again, it's 1/4 scale piece from last level. This is not for sale. This is for a client. It's not mine. So cool piece. I really like the sculpt. Franco killed it again. Not too many switch outs. He has 3 heads and 2 optional right arms. Personally, I think he could have just done with the 1 right arm because the only difference is that one is bent and the other one is straight. And my personal preference is the bent arm. So again, I kind of have a love-hate thing with switch outs. I really don't understand a lot of times when they give a ton of switch outs. Maybe the 3 different heads is, I actually like the 3 different heads on this a lot. It has to do with the helmets more than anything. But let's do a quick measurement from the bottom of the base to the top of his hammer. You are looking at 32 inches exactly. So he's a tall guy. There's no optional switch out for the right or for the left arm. So if you have a height requirement of space, and you're kind of limited there. Width-wise, let's see if I come from this side. Not too wide. You go from the outside of his cape to his knee, which is the widest point. You're looking at about maybe 20 inches. And then depth-wise, again, doesn't take up a whole lot of space. Depth-wise, it's about, again, this is just kind of a guesstimate, about 21 inches. So 32 by 20 by 21. I'm just going over the sculpt real quick. Again, high-quality kit. I believe this is from Ownage. You can usually tell it's an Ownage kit just by the quality of the casting and the cleanup. Basically go over the kind of the head sculpt because that's the main difference. They all fit very well. I do have one little repair and some fitment issue on the cape I'm going to work on first thing today. But here's the first young portrait, I guess, or not young portrait because he's a young guy, but no beard, classic helmet portrait. And to switch out the heads, the wings are magnetized, so I guess technically once, I'll have to talk to my client. I guess technically I could glue, I'll probably end up gluing the helmets on in the end because there's no reason for them to be removable because each head has a specific helmet. So, but they are removable for painting, so I can take these off. I can take the helmet off. And then the hair comes, each hair, it depends on the, like this one comes off in a couple pieces. So it's good engineering for painting purposes, but in the end I'll probably glue all that together. There's no reason for it to come off once it's painted. And then the wings, I may leave those separate just for shipping purposes and just keeps any chance of anything breaking down. So that's that first helmet, first head. I'm digging it. And then I really like these two. I love the helmets on these guys. They're really nice and ornate. And you can't take the helmets off because, I mean, you can, but then there's no top of the head. So it's meant to be displayed with helmets at all times. And then this guy has its own wings. So we got a bearded portrait with this helmet. Looks really good. Some more light on it. Zoom in a little bit. Yeah. Really sharp. Really like the ornateness of the helmet. And then you have a second one. Is it the same helmet? It is the same helmet. So same portrait, just no beard. So you got that option. So 3 heads, 2 no beard, 1 with a beard, and two different style helmets. Okay, so that's the heads. I showed you the switch out arm, just one straight, one's curved or bent. And then here's my repair. This happened in shipping. I can't remember if my client had told me that it was broken beforehand or not. So what I'm going to do today, my goal today is to basically fix this. And what I'll do is I'll drill some small holes and try to put a pin in here and get that fixed. And then also you can see here that there's quite a bit of gap here. So the cape actually fits really well right now. So I'm wondering if I can just kind of heat this up and try to bend that down a little bit. When a part fits as good as this does, I really hate to go in there and start messing with the keys because I don't want to mess up the integrity of the fit. And the nice thing about this kit is that the cape is light. It's not crazy heavy. So it fits well. It's not going to sag. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to just heat this up and bend it down so there's not as much of a gap there. I think that's the only thing that's bugging me is right here when you look at it from the front, there's this kind of big gap. I don't think I can get it to go down anymore. That's just the way it fits. But so I'm going to pause. I'll come back, get set up, and we'll start working on fixing this this brake right here. Okay, so to fix this brake, it's actually not too bad. And actually, what's interesting is I'm not going to worry about it because you don't see it. But I know that they've put some metal in the cape to help support it because it's protruding there just a hair. The metal rod they put in here. So my guess is they got this rod is here and it's bent down in the middle of the cape, so it helps support the cape. So I'm not worrying about it because you're not going to see it once it's on there. Again, with all these kits, even though they come quote unquote prepped from the factory, I typically will go over this and just make sure there aren't any rough areas, typically on a cape. And because of all the folds, and this happens when I paint too, you'll get dry spray in the crevices and stuff. It's really hard to avoid that, but this seems pretty smooth. But usually what I'll do is I'll give it a very light sanding with 1,000 grit sanding sponge, give it a bath, and if I need to reprime it, I'll shoot some more primer on it. But just like running my fingers over here, I feel some trash here in the paint, and this is from the primer. That's just from the factory. And I'll do that on the whole kit. But usually the capes are the hardest because they're smooth. So any kind of dirt or anything in there will show up. On fabric and stuff like that with a lot of texture, you usually don't see it. So I usually don't worry about it too much. And all my paint jobs have dust in them. There's no way to avoid it. So anyway, what I'm going to do is I've got some 1/16 inch brass rod here. And this is just, I could just, if I wanted to, just glue this on here and be done with it. But since I have to ship this and it broke once, the integrity of this is compromised, so it's better to try to put some support in there. And since it's pretty thin, I'm going to try to drill a hole right here and on this end, and then glue it. Now I'm looking at the cross section here, and this actually, it looks like this may have broken at the factory and they fixed it. And the reason I'm saying that, because we have the color of the resin here, which, by the way, these factories tend to use a cheaper resin. It's very brittle. It doesn't have any flex in it, and you can tell. Like this resin has like a shiny cross section. That usually means there's a filler and there's some sort of fiberglass filler to reduce the cost of the resin. It also makes things a little bit lighter, but it makes things brittle. So you pay a lot of money for this kit. I think it depends on the factory. It really depends. And on parts like arms and things that are thick like that, it's not that big of a deal. But on thin parts like this, where any little bit of stress is going to cause it to break, it's a big deal. You want to have that flex. So I've got a pin vise here, and a pin vise is basically a handheld drill bit. And I'm going to see if I can get a hole in here, and I should have just enough meat to do that. And I'm using a pin vise and not a drill because I don't want to crack out the resin. So I just rather go slow and take my time with a pin vise. So you see first one I'm just drilling on this side. And I'm going to go as fairly deep, probably like 1/2 inch in. And this brass rod is just going to give this a little extra support internally. So And I'm keeping my finger on the outside of the cape here, just so if I start to go through, I can feel it. And you'll be able to feel the tip of the drill, or the drill bit tip, just underneath the surface of the resin, and that's when I'll stop drilling. Okay, so you can see here that I've gone in about 1/2 inch. That's about how far I've gone in. Should be just enough. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is get a little piece of blue tack, if I can find it right here. And what I do is I just get a little piece like this, and I just warm it up so it's sticky. So I just kind of knead it in my fingers here for a minute. And I don't need to be real thick, so I know this is a perfect fit. And I'm going to put it on the piece that's broken. This is how I find where to drill the next hole. Now, someone had in one of the groups asked how I did this, so this is how I do it. And then what I'll do is I'll probably drill the hole on this side a little bit bigger, just so I have a little wiggle room. And I'm just going to line it up and give it a squeeze. And if it worked out right, you can see here on the end there, I've got a little bit of blue tack sticking out where it went into that hole. So now the goal is to try to get that drilled right in this right spot. As close as possible. So just mark it. And like I said, I'll probably drill this a little bit. I'll actually drill it a little bit bigger on the actual cape side, because I've got a little more material to work with. Yeah, I'm kind of just holding this so I can feel if I'm starting to go through it all. Okay, that's pretty good. Yeah, so I think I'm going to do, here's my brass rod. It's 1/16 inch brass rod. And I like to scuff it up. So I get like a coarse grit sanding sponge or a piece of sandpaper. Let's see what I got. Easily accessible. All right, here's some 80 grit. So I'm just going to scuff it up so my glue has something to bite into. Like that. And I'm going to go ahead and glue it in on this side. So I'm just going to put a little bit of drop of glue in. Oops, that's a big drop of glue. I don't need that much for now. I don't want that much on there. Not yet. And we're going to push that in. Get a pair of pliers. Like that. I'm going to wipe off the excess glue. And remember, I went in about 1/2 inch on the other side, so I'm going to kind of cut this probably a little bit long. Like that. And we'll see how we line up. I'll probably have to drill this hole a little bit bigger. Yeah. So let's see what I got. 16th. 3/32 actually the next best size. And I'll have to change out my other pin vise because I have a different size bit in there, so I'm gonna do that real quick. This is the right size, 3/32. Yeah. All right, let's see if I have enough meat in here to do a 3/32 inch hole. Hopefully I don't crack out the... And every once in a while I'll take the drill bit out and clear the dust, because as that dust builds up in there, it puts stress on the hole. And with this resin being brittle like it is, so that's as big as I can go on this piece. If I go any bigger, I'll crack out the resin. All right, let's see. I'm gonna go a little bit deeper. I'm hardly putting any pressure on the pin vise. I'm letting the drill bit do the work. Okay. This is as far as I'm not going to push my luck anymore, so I'm going to cut this pin down a little bit, which is no big deal. At least we got something in there to give it some support. And let's see how we line up. A little bit more. Okay. I gotta bend this pin a little bit. So it's a lot of just kind of tweaking back and forth till you get a nice fit. Okay. I'm going to make this hole just a hair bit wider. So what I can do is I can fill that hole with glue and then push this together. Then I'll have to do a little sanding and putty work probably on the surface, but it's not the end of the world. Just trying to get it as best as I can. Yeah, as you can see, I got chipped out there a little bit. Okay, so that's pretty good. Just making sure I like the overall fit before I glue it. Yeah, it's pretty good. Put a bit of glue. And I'm going to let it ooze out. A little bit, and then that'll help fill some of the gap. So I'm just going to push on this real tight. I'm going to hold it there for 10-15 seconds. I'm not going to use any zip kicker. I'm just going to let it do its thing. Let it dry. Okay. So we're going to let that dry, and then we'll come back and I'll sand down the primer and we'll work on fixing the little gap there and the little crack. Okay, so my glue's dry for 5 or 10 minutes, and I'm just gonna go in there, start sanding this glue joint down, and we'll put some filler on there and get some primer on. Hopefully this will be repaired here shortly. And then we can work on trying to heat up the other side and getting it to fit down better. So this is just some old, I think this is 220. I'm just gonna, I'll have to put some filler in here, but I need to get the whatever oozed out sanded down first. Yeah, and I like the sandpaper because I can fold it to kind of get down on the creases. And what I'll probably do is, since I'm going to prime this spot, I'll probably go ahead and just give the whole cape a light sanding and prime it. And also have a sanding sponge here. I think what I'll do is, instead of going in there with like just straight up body fill, I've got some spot putty that I think will fill in that really small crack pretty well. And not even bother sand. Yeah, I'll sand the bottom side a little bit. Not too much, because really don't need to. Looks like that piece fit on there pretty good. I'm just glad this cape is easy to work with. One of the things I love about a really good sculpt is a cool cape, but I hate painting them because they're usually very large and very cumbersome. I just did a Valzad piece, and the cape was crazy unnecessarily heavy. Okay. Now, what I can do is brush this off. Just get a crappy print brush, get all the dust off. Like that. And I'm just going to use some Bondo spot putty. I think that'll do it, because I don't have a large area to fill. And it'll keep the sanding down and stuff. So just red glazing putty. I'm just going to put it on my finger. And when I do this, I push it down really hard. I want to make sure it goes into the crack. And this is air dry stuff, so I've got one spot that's kind of deep, where it chipped out a little bit, so I'll probably have to do that. I'll probably have to do this probably 2 or 3 times. So it's a little slower process as far as drying goes, but I don't want to stick straight up body fill on here. It's a little aggressive for this small repair. So I'll probably have to let this sit for 30-40 minutes just to be sure that it's dried, and then I'll do it a second time. hopefully after I prime it. So what I'll do is I'll let this dry. I'll sand it down. I'll do it again, sand it down, and then I'll do a little spot prime on that area to check my repair and see how it looks. So that's it for that. And this stuff sands super easy. So once it dries, I'll just use the sanding sponge since it conforms really well to the shape. But this is starting to dry already. But like there's one spot where it chipped out just a hair, where it's a little bit deeper. And since this dries by air, it'll take quite a bit longer to dry. So I think they say you're supposed to let this dry. It doesn't say on here on the container it did, but usually 10 to 15 minutes for really thin layers. But I'll probably let this dry 30 or 40 minutes, and we'll come back. Okay, so I sand this down, put another layer of putty on it, and let that dry. While I was doing that, I heated this up and pushed this down. Now I got a nice fit there, so no more gap. And I just held it down while it cooled. So I'm gonna let this dry another, 15, 20 minutes. I'll sand it, and then I'll throw a little bit of primer on that spot and see what we look like. Okay, so I went and just did a little spot primer on my repair, and I think it looks pretty good. I'm not seeing any evidence of a crack there where I repaired it. And you can see it's kind of dusty. I went through and gave this whole thing a light sanding with the 3M ultrafine sanding sponge. The one thing I'm not a fan of factory primer is it actually has a lot of green in it. If you look at this dust, it's kind of got a yellow-green tint to it. I don't like that because it's not very neutral, so it kind of affects your colors. But I think the repair looks good. We're going to let that primer dry really well. And the primer will shrink as it dries, so if anything is wonky, it'll show up here in maybe 30-40 minutes as far as like any additional work on the repair. If I have to do some more, I'll come back and show you what I would do next, but I think this is going to be fine. I can kind of tell right away that the repair is fine. So once that primer dries, I'll give it about, it's Krylon spray can primer. I'll give it about an hour, hour and a half, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go wash all the parts. I always wash the model kit before you start to paint it, because from the factory it could have oil and dust on it. So I go give everything a nice scrubbing with some warm water and liquid detergent, just like like a Dawn or a I used to use soft scrub, but I don't need to do that, and I just use a liquid detergent, Dawn, something with a little bit of degreasing agent in it, and then we'll let everything dry, and then we'll start painting. So I'm just gonna call this first work in progress done. It's basically kind of like fixing the cape and an introduction to the kit. And the next work in progress we'll start doing some paint. I'll probably start with the cape. We'll see if I just placed a paint order today because my local hobby store doesn't have a lot of colors I use, so I'm having to order stuff online. So hopefully I'll get them in it relatively quickly. If not, I'll have to come up with some other alternatives. But we're gonna start painting next. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next one.